You know that feeling when you shut your laptop at the end of a day and you think, damn, that was a really good day? Well, a lot of people assume that that feeling comes from being super productive or being very busy or being exhausted in the very right ways, right? But it turns out that's not actually what makes a day feel good at all. And once you understand what does, it'll completely change how you approach your workday. So stay tuned and I'll tell you how. Welcome to the Do More, Stress Less podcast. I'm your host, Alexis Hasselberger, a time management and productivity coach. In every episode, I give you actionable, practical tips to help you learn to use your time in a way that feels good to you every day. No more hustling, scrambling, or struggling to keep your head above water. So let's dive in, and soon enough, you'll be doing more and stressing less. That feeling, you know that feeling. You get to the end of the day, you shut your laptop, you think, man, that was such a good day. It's such a good feeling, right? And it's maybe a little more elusive than you'd like, right? Perhaps these types of days, they don't occur very often. If I asked you right now, could you define what goes into a quote, good day? Yep, you can think about it. I'll wait a sec. Pause me if you need to. And for the purposes of this conversation, let's assume that we're talking about a good work day. Got it? Okay. Well, if you asked me this question before I read a particular study, I would have told you that a good workday for me is one in which I, 1, used my brain in a fulfilling way to do interesting work, 2, took a reasonable amount of breaks, and 3, spent time with people I like working with, or myself. And yes, I do like myself. And then I read that study, and what it found rang true for me too. This study I found, it was a pretty big one too. It found that the primary marker of a, quote, good day at work is a day in which you made meaningful progress on anything at all. Yes, seriously. This feels like kind of a bare minimum, bottom of the barrel type expectation. But I bet you've also had plenty of days where you worked hard all day long and yet you barely checked anything off your task list. I call this letting the day happen to you. And look, it can happen to the best of us. You know what it feels like. You sit down at your desk, you open your inbox, you start responding, you have a few meetings, you go into Slack, you've got more email, and all of a sudden it's 6 p.m. You're tired, you're defeated, you're frustrated. You've done everything except make progress, despite your best intentions and despite having worked really hard. So, how can you reverse engineer a good day? Well, let me share just a few things that can really move the needle. So first, do not start with email or Slack. Now, I know you're thinking, I am crazy. Of course, that's how we start, with email or Slack. But no, don't do it. Email and Slack, I call them OPP, other people's priorities. Are you down with OPP? No, in this case, no. If you can delay checking email or Slack for even an hour after you start work, instead focusing on your most important must-do tasks of the day, you will be blown away by how much progress you can make. And no one will notice if you answer their email at 10 a.m. instead of 9 a.m., I promise. Every email and message opens a loop in your brain, and your brain is wired to want to close those loops. So instead of just checking and opening up all those loops, do the stuff that needs to get done right away and then get into your inboxes. I promise this will be so much better. Okay. Now, another thing you can do is to plan for tomorrow today. If you start the day with a plan, you are much likelier to make progress on the important stuff because you've actually defined the important stuff. Bonus, you will be able to mentally disconnect from work in the evening so much better if you do this. Now, if you want to know more, I wrote an article about exactly this and how you can do a plan in less than 15 minutes. In fact, at this point in my life, it probably takes me about 2 minutes to do a plan for tomorrow, a really realistic one. And anywhere you start is going to be better than showing up tomorrow morning with no plan at all. Now, this is another great thing you can try, and this is to build in buffer. Look, unexpected things will always come up. You do not know what in advance, but you can be sure that there will be some amount of what I call stuff you didn't know about yesterday that has to be done today. So plan for it by building in some buffer time. If you plan out every single moment of your day and you just hope that you're going to get everything done in that time and then nothing else is going to change and nothing is going to take longer than you expect and no emergencies are going to happen, well, you are setting yourself up for failure. But building in buffer, this is a way to accept and plan for reality, even if you don't know what that reality is going to look like. All right, another thing you can try is to batch process your communications. Look, I know it. You get so many pings and dings. How can you possibly get anything done at all, right? Your job, it's replying to email, right? It's replying to Slack. But what about if you turn off the notifications and you batch process your email and you batch process Slack and you batch process Teams instead? You might think that you need to answer immediately, but I can assure you, you do not. I bet you work with some people who never answer at all, right? Now, you don't want to be like that. You want to be timely, but there's a better way to do it. So I want to give a quick caveat here, right? There are some jobs where responding immediately is necessary in certain circumstances, like you're in ops and you get pinged when the website goes down, or you're a doctor and you get pages from people that need you immediately for truly life-saving things, right? Like that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about normal office worker stuff. Now, your mileage may vary with this technique, but most knowledge workers can get away pretty easily with batch processing communications between about 2 and 6 times a day. And you will still be more responsive, and responsible, I guess, than if you're just checking email 37 times a day. And that is the average, 37 times a day. When you batch process your communications, you have more focused time to make progress. And remember, making progress is what it takes to have a, quote, good day. So says the science. All right, now finally, I want to give you one more. Don't just keep track of what you have to do. Keep track of what you did. This is called writing a ta-da list. Like, you know you have a to-do list, but what is your ta-da list? What if you tried this, right? As you finish things or as you make progress, just jot them down and then look at it at the end of the day, or maybe even a few times a day, congratulating yourself every single time on what you've accomplished. Now, bonus, if you start making this to-do list, you are going to mentally trick yourself into wanting to add to it. And that will trick your brain into making meaningful progress. And you know what? As I am saying time and time again, so much of productivity is mental trickery. Now, you want to give it a shot? I would start with just one of these strategies and see what happens. And I will remind you what these strategies are. So don't start with email or Slack, right? Start with the stuff you actually have to do. Plan for tomorrow, today. Build in some buffer, batch process those communications, or write a to-do list. Don't try to do them all at once. Just pick one and see how it goes. And let me know, which one do you plan to start with? And that's a wrap on today's episode of the Do More, Stress Less podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, share this episode with a friend or two who might appreciate a little more ease in their days. I promise you won't regret doing this 30-second good deed. See you next time.